But I'm going to show you two easy, fun ways to do image transfers. First is by using a clear piece of packing tape. So what is going to happen is you're going to use your packing tape, and you can actually do this with just regular tape, like Scotch tape, a small piece of Scotch tape. This is a really good technique. This tape technique is really good for transferring text. And the reason why is because it will transfer the text so you can read it. So it will transfer the text the correct way. The second process I show you is not like that. The second process I show you will reverse your image. I love this technique because, number one, it's the easiest. It's instant gratification, as you'll see. And then also it keeps your image the right way. What you're going to do, like let's say I want to take this block of text and I want to transfer it to this. What's going to happen is I'm going to actually transfer to this piece of tape so that it's transparent. Then this tape is what I will apply to my painting. So I find what it is I want. I'm going to take my tape, I'm going to take the sticky side, and I am going to put that down onto the text or the image that I want to preserve. Because the stickiness of the tape is going to grab that ink. So now we have all this paper to deal with. This is where it can be a little bit of a struggle, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to use water and we're going to peel away all the paper fibers. Because you all know paper is made from pulped wood. So you can get your paper wet. I have a spray gun here, or a little spray bottle here. You can also dip it in your water, but you got to get it really wet so that the water really gets into the fibers of the paper. And then what's going to happen is you need to start rolling off the paper fibers. So you see how the paper is starting to roll off of here, and then the ink is what's left behind. So it takes, like I said, it takes a little bit of, you got to kind of rub away at it, and that can be a little challenging, but eventually the paper will roll off, and then just that ink is left on the piece of tape. This doesn't work on every printed thing. This technique does not work on newspaper or any kind of newsprint because the ink wears off. It works on books, magazines, calendars. It will sometimes work on these kind of decorative papers that you can buy, and gift wrap paper even. It won't work on photographic film, but generally if something was printed that's not a newspaper, it will work on that. And it's up to you. You could even like leave some of the paper fibers on there. Sometimes that gives it an interesting kind of distressed look. So you see what happened here. There's still a little bit of paper fiber on there, but even that green, that light green that was printed on the page transferred to this piece of tape. So now what I would do is I would take this and put it into my painting or whatever it is we work on. There's usually enough stick that you could just stick it into some wet paint and be fine. But to be on the safe side, what I do is I take some of my gel medium, my acrylic gel medium, and brush it on the back side of the tape and then stick that. So it's just like a collage element. Now it's shiny, as you can tell, and some people really don't like that. So if you don't like that it's shiny, what you can do is find, you might have a material somewhere that says it's a matte medium, matte, M-A-T-T-E. I don't know. Oh, I do. Here. This, they spelled it M-A-T-T. This is a clear matte medium. Matte means it dries not shiny. So what I could do now is take a little bit of that and brush it over the top of this, and it will cut that glare away. So that's like the fun transfer technique. If you have a big image that you want to transfer this way, you can take multiple pieces of tape and just overlap them slightly, like 1/8 of an inch, and lay them over a big image. And then, you gotta it takes some time, but you can rub all that paper off eventually, and you'll have your transfer. Okay, so the second image transfer is a little more time consuming, a little more difficult. And what it does is it reverses the image. So text will be reversed. I did this using the second transfer technique. And for it, what you're going to need is acrylic gel medium, heavy gel medium. So this says extra heavy gel gloss. That means this is extra thick, extra strong. Gloss means it's going to dry glossy. But you can see it's kind of thick. It's white, but it dries clear. So this is going to act like the stickiness in your tape acted. This is what's going to grab your image. So with this technique, what you're going to do is take your gel medium, and you're going to take a brush or a palette knife, something, and you're going to slather it onto the image that you want to preserve. So I'm going to take a bunch of this. I'm going to put it on this image. This is the image I want to keep. In this case, I'm going to just take a credit card and really slather it over this image. And I'm just putting it on the actual image. I'm not going to put it on the entire piece of paper because eventually I want to get rid of all that paper. So there. Put a bunch of acrylic gel medium on that. Then I'm going to stick it into my painting wherever it is I want to keep it. So we'll do it down here. So for a while, you're not going to see your picture. Try to get it on there and then leave it. You do not want to paint over this. You just don't let it dry. You have to let this set up now for a long time. Like I recommend to people at least 3 hours, but I mean, back in the day when materials were a little bit different, you had to leave it overnight and just really let that acrylic medium set up and get hard, because that way, what you're going to do next is you're going to put water on the paper and really rub away at it to get those paper fibers off and reveal the image, which has been stuck into the acrylic medium. So that's what this is over here. I did this last night. I prepared. So on the other side of this paper is an image that I wanted to preserve. I will say, disclaimer, you'll get different results depending on your surface, depending on your paper. My recommendation is to do a test before you commit to it. So I'm gonna try to angle the camera down so you can see this. So you can see the image is it's revealing itself. I'm gonna get rid of these two people. Maybe you see there's like a building being revealed underneath. And you may have already noticed this. Like maybe you've been you did a collage at some point and you put a paper down that you really don't like. You wanted to take it off, so you tore it off and you noticed that the image underneath was still stuck to the canvas. That's very common. So you might have already done this technique and not even realized it. At worst, what happens, like when this technique doesn't work, what happens is it's hard to get all the paper fibers off, so your image won't be very clear. Or maybe you haven't let it set up enough and the image rolls off your canvas or your board. That's when you know it hasn't worked. I mean, it's easiest if you're laying it flat also. But if you are working on canvas, you might find you're like putting a lot of stress on the actual canvas. So you see, I wiped those two people away. And now I have this really cool, this is a black and white image of my college campus back in the day, a part of it. And you could leave little bits of the paper showing. I kind of like that distressed look even. It can be kind of interesting. So I'm just gonna stop here. You'll get a lot of these paper curls. Don't wash them down the sink because they're gonna clog up your sink. So if you have done this, and I mean, right now this is still wet, so the image looks pretty clear. It looks pretty good. But as it dries, it might get a little bit of a fuzzy quality to it because the paper is still stuck to the image. So in that case, you would do the opposite of what we did last technique. In this case, you would find something glossy, like my gel medium says gloss. You would find a glossy material and paint it on it. And sometimes that helps to preserve the crispness of the image. Another thing that's fun with these, like if they are a little bit unsuccessful and you just kind of have this torn paper look on your canvas, you could take a little bit of I'm going to take some burnt umber and just paint onto that and kind of stain it. And then that just, at the worst, you'll have a pretty interesting texture. So you could do a whole canvas, just layering these different transfers. I'll just wipe that off. So you could take a little bit of color, like let's say I know this is a brownstone building, like you could take a little bit of color and go in there and paint over, pretend you're color correcting like a black and white movie or something. You can add little bits of color. This is a really cool technique for portrait painting. Also, this technique will work on a printout, not on your inkjet printer. Your inkjet printer won't work. So see, I put a little bit of green in there for that tree. But what you can do is go to like Staples or something and have them print out an image for you. So I hope this has been, hope you learned something with this image transfer technique. It's a really fun process that you can, I mean, you can always go into any old collage, any old mixed media piece and apply a transfer, either this way or using the tape technique. One thing I will say is that because you have to put a lot of wear and tear with this second technique, because you have to use a lot of water and a lot of wear and tear, it's recommend, I mean, don't do it on paper. It's not really, your paper is going to also wear away. So you want to do it on either canvas or board. You want to do it on a stable surface for this.